pod bay doors, please, Hal.
In this modern age,
Perfect.
too many people have lost sight of the true meaning of Christmas.
Mom! Hush!
Shut up, Ralphie!
So now, in the spirit of the original,
I made you. Stop!
traditional, American Christmas,
Thanks a lot!
MGM presents A Christmas Story.
Dancing through the snow
Uncle!
in a one-horse open sleigh. For the field we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits fly. What fun it is to ride and sing! This sleighing's on tonight.
Fragile. That must be Italian.
I think that says fragile, honey.
Look at that!
A Christmas Story.
Come on!
The movie that pulls off Santa's beard.
Oh, wow!
And unwraps the secrets
Didn't I get a tie this year?
of the original, traditional,
You look like a deranged Easter bunny.
100% two-fisted, red-blooded,
It's smiling at me.
all-American Christmas. A Christmas Story.
Bay doors are open. I am your host, Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com, along with my ever-present co-host, Jerry Dean Roberts, omnipresent on the internet. He's at, his reviews are at Armchair Critic, Armchair Cinema. See, I've been doing it so well lately. ArmchairCinema.com. He's also got ArmchairOscars.com and OverThinkingOscars.com. Jerry Dean Roberts is here with me today. How are you, Jerry? And Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho. If Higby thinks I'm working past 9 o'clock, he can kiss my foot. Ho, ho, ho.
Today we're talking about one of the truly greats, one of the few movies that I consider perfect. A Christmas Story.
As do I.
Written by Gene Shepard and Bob Clark, directed by Bob Clark, also famous for Porky's. And I want to say Black Christmas in '74?
Yes. I've never in my life seen a director who has a more unenviable list of credits.
Baby Geniuses 1 and 2?
Baby Geniuses 1 and 2. You look down, it's like he made some good movies and a lot of really bad stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
I hate Porky's with an unbridled passion. I know my opinion is not shared by you. I know you enjoyed it.
I think it's
hated
funny. It's not a great movie, but I think it's funny.
But if that movie hadn't been successful, we wouldn't have a Christmas Story.
Exactly.
But if we hadn't had a Christmas Story, there'd be no rhinestone, and I'd be okay with that.
That one I haven't seen.
Oh. You know what it's about?
No.
Dolly Parton is a country singer. It's
Oh,
basically
boy.
My Fair Lady. She's a country singer who makes a bet that she can turn the next person who walks by into a country singer, and unfortunately the next person who walks by is Sylvester Stallone.
Oh my.
It's horrible. There's a running gag in that movie about jock hitch. I mean,
Okay, so we're not talking about that one.
we're not talking about that one, but I just had to mention that because that movie
that would have been
horrifying.
that would have been a good pick for last month.
Oh Oh yeah. Gotta love any movie with a song like Drinkenstein.
Okay. Now I want to
I'm
see this
sorry,
movie.
that movie just amuses me. I'm sorry.
Now I want to see that movie.
No, you really don't.
This coming from the man who said, "You've got to see God's Not Dead."
And God's Not Dead
And
too.
God's Not Dead too. And War Room. And you've
If our
got to
listeners
see
don't
it.
know, by the way, I amuse myself. I'm in a good mood because we're talking about a good movie. So, A Christmas Story.
So yeah, I mean, I saw this. I think for the first time I was in elementary school. It was at school during an assembly. You know, when you that time in school where they would still gather you together and you would watch a movie. It's one of those rare times that stopped happening after a while. Um, and I think for whatever reason, either it was the dismissal or whatever happened, I only got the first time I watched it, I only got to the tire change scene, and then I had to leave and do something for whatever reason, and I didn't see it again until I was much older, probably in high school or after. And I love this movie, like absolutely without and my wife and I have a tradition every year on Christmas Eve. We put in a Christmas story and we wrap presents to
That's a
a
good
Christmas
tradition.
story. So it's
But do you wrap socks?
yes.
It's one of my favorite throwaway gags in this is when they
I
get
love
the
it when they
socks.
both look at them and then they throw them over their
Just throw 'em
shoulder.
away. I I'm about a decade older than Doug. Maybe exactly a decade older.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
I remember when this movie came out. It was really when I
What is
started to notice
83?
83,
I was
1983. Came out in November of 83.
I was 2.
And I remember I was 12. And I remember when this movie came out because there was a lot of advertising for it, a lot of, that kind of thing. Really, when I started to, I won't say notice movies, but take them seriously, I guess, because this thing came out, and it didn't have a lot of press, but you heard a lot of reviews. And it was also the first time I really ever noticed reviews. There was some concern that the movie might be a little too cynical for a Christmas movie. I remember that. I remember the reviews were either really good or really terrible.
Well, instead of rewatching the movie for this, I watched it with the commentary, so I didn't really feel like I was watching the movie out of time, because we record these early. And one of the things that Bob Clark said, it was with Bob Clark and
The late Bob Clark.
the late Bob Clark and Peter Billingsley, the actor who played Ralphie, and he said that it was warmly cynical.
It is.
Or cynically warm-hearted or something like that.
Which I think is why it fits so beautifully to these times.
Oh yeah, and it still fits. It still fits because it's a movie made in 1983 about set around in 1940, and it resonates for people from that generation, from your generation to my generation. And my son,
Everybody can find something
loves it. Yeah, it's hilarious, and it's very heartwarming. It's very much an American Christmas story.
I remember Siskel and Ebert loved it, and I remember the press leading up to this. It was just it was never, when it came out, it was never thought of as nobody ever thought it was going to be a classic or anything like that. It was just another movie, and holiday movies generally don't do very well.
No,
It okay, but I remember we had on our I was living in Ohio at the time. Our local news guy, our local news team had a film critic who would do like these 3-minute reviews,
Mm-hmm.
and he was one of those really haughty, self-serious kind of. He's the kind of guy that would actually go to the theater and actually say something like, "My review can make or break this."
Ugh.
And but he was like, "This movie is not funny. It takes the holidays and throws rocks at it," which it does.
It
It's
does.
just one
It
of those.
does. It does. But I mean, the
It
thing
was one of
that
those things where it's just,
I think the thing that makes it stand apart is that it was one of the first holiday movies that didn't paint a Norman Rockwell family,
mm,
and it allowed for the notion that swearing happened before the 60s. and, uh,
also
and
did
that,
not paint, and also did not paint Christmas with religion.
right. It was just it was from a kid's perspective, and the kids just think about what they want for Christmas,
Mhm.
and
Adults do that too.
yeah, and so it it's kind of a stab at the commercialized nature of Christmas, but it also accepts that as part of it, and I think that
Well,
it's probably also one of the best sketch movies that.
yeah, it's episodic.
Yeah, it is. The only thing that
Well,
holds it together is the Red Ryder BB gun.
the one thing I noticed is that it's it does throw rocks at Christmas. He was
Mhm.
right, but it does it in a very funny way. Because it's not. And in 1983, when you thought of a Christmas movie, you thought of White Christmas. You thought of It's a Wonderful Life. You thought of you didn't think you didn't people
No.
were averse to thinking this way about Christmas.
Yeah.
So it needed time to boil. I did not see this in a theater. We had a choice with me and my dad and my brother. We had a choice. It was either this or Mr. Mom. And for whatever reason, we chose Mr. Mom. I don't know why. But I saw this on
I
television.
feel so bad for 12-year-old you.
12-year-old me laughed a couple of times at Mr. Mom, but I'm sure would have laughed a lot more at this.
Oh yeah,
I discovered this on television.
like
as
most
most
people.
And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I've
It's
been in
hard
love with
not
it
to.
ever since. It's hard not to. It's a wonderful movie. But like I said, there are people who love it and there are people who hate it. My wife hates this movie.
Really?
I don't know why, but my wife does not like this movie at all.
Huh.
What I love about it, what I respond to it, is the texture of this film is basically a memory.
Yeah.
It does not seem to exist on a pragmatic or terra firma level. It seems to exist as it would in your mind if you're remembering back on certain things,
Right.
which is why a lot of it seems very surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very funny, but underneath the funny, it's also got a lot of very human touches.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humanity in the humor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the father,
I love the old man.
the old man. He, he seems really gruff, but then you also get a lot of touches of genuine humanity,
Mhm.
and
Especially at the end.
yeah, especially at the end, love for his children. You know, it's really
And he's
and-
not stupid.
no.
You notice how many fathers in the movies are stupid?
Yes.
He's not stupid.
No.
He's just an ordinary guy. He has ordinary appetites, and he's just, and I love the quirks that they give to him. Like, when he's fighting with the furnace.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, they don't allow him, when he's down in the furnace, they don't allow him to swear words. You just hear the muffled sort of garble.
Well, it's funny because what they said in the commentary was that Gene Shepard wrote out the pseudo curses,
Mhm.
and when Ralphie is attacking Scott Farkas, he actually had him imitate exactly, memorize exactly what the old man said on at the furnace seat.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, like word for word, nonsense word to nonsense word. But the thing about that is I've always loved that it's in what you hear is not the swear words. What you hear is Ralphie's filtration.
Yeah.
But he's actually really cursing. You just hear a sanitized version of it back through memory. And he says that it's cursing, but he doesn't put those words into his memory for us to hear.
Well, and people who come from that generation, you know, they don't in remembering back, don't generally use the word when they're quoting it, which is why when he says the F word, he says fudge, because that's how you would tell somebody that story.
Right,
That's
right.
How you would tell somebody that story.
And apparently they filmed it both ways with him saying both things.
Mm-hmm.
And they zoom in just above Ralphie's mouth before the K. So he could say fudge or.
Yeah.
But
And
I didn't say fudge.
It also remembers what a holy terror those words were when we were little kids, especially around our parents, and how casually kids use them.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the first lines that you hear in this movie is, "Listen, smart ass."
Yeah.
That's one of the first lines you hear. And that's what separates this movie. When you watch this movie, you know exactly that little line tells you exactly what you're going to get.
And at some point, Ralphie goes, "Son of a bitch."
Yeah, and so does the father.
Yeah, with the Orphan Annie decoder ring.
I
It's
love
like,
it.
"Be sure to drink your Ovaltine." Son of a bitch! It was
And
just a commercial.
Oh yeah, and it is episodic, like we said before. It's these little vignettes. There are all these different things. You know, the little Orphan Annie thing, the bullies, the essay that he's got to write, all of these different things. Going to see Santa Claus. You know, and it's all it's episodic, like your memories would be. And I love the relationship with his little brother. It's very combative.
Mm-hmm.
Ralphie kind of rescues him a couple of times at one point when he falls over in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I love she dresses the kid up.
I
and he
can't
can't
put my arms down. Put your arms down when you get to school.
This is great. He walks out of the house.
Like a starfish.
It looks like a starfish. He's got his arms out and he's wailing.
Because he's got the scarf wrapped around his head.
Oh, there are these little details in this movie. I just absolutely love the details. My favorite is the scene where Ralphie comes home from school. He opens the mailbox. He takes out the mail and he filters through it, and he's got the package from the little Orphan Annie, and he puts the rest of the mail back in the box.
He doesn't care about any of that.
I love those little touches like that.
I mean, this is one of those few movies that I think perfectly encapsulates childhood.
Yeah, it does.
Of any era. I mean, even today's kids see a lot of themselves in Ralphie and his friends, and for something like that was really based out of late 30s and early 40s, made in the early 80s, and can still resonate post smartphone, is really kind of amazing. And it's always been hard to believe that Bob Clark was even moderately responsible for this, let alone he had final cut. This was completely up one side and down the other his movie. He got to have everything he wanted, yeah. And he worked on this for like 10 years with Gene Shepard before it came to fruition. Which apparently Porky's was the same way. He worked on that for 10 years before he got that made too.
That movie is just so mean-spirited.
It really.
I don't like Porky.
The sequels are even more mean-spirited.
It's just too mean. I don't like that movie. It's the cynicism, the balance of cynicism here is so wonderful because it's balanced with a lot of warmth
Mm-hmm.
and a kid's eye view of the world.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really want to make sure I mention is, we talked about the old man, is not made out to be a buffoon or made out to be an idiot. He just loves, well, he's loves certain things.
Mm-hmm.
He loves his car. He loves the dickering over the tree.
Mm-hmm.
He loves, I love how he responds to the furnace. Because they're sitting there at breakfast and it goes off. And he responds like a fireman.
Yeah.
It's a clicker! And he runs down. Just like he's sliding down the pole. It's like he enjoys this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
like he gets excited over being angry about the furnace.
Right. It's almost kind of a primer for Homer Simpson a little bit.
A little bit.
Only not quite adult, kind
Yeah.
of just a guy who just gets excited about little things. The other, and I don't think she gets enough credit, Melinda Dillon,
Oh.
is so wonderful in this movie as the mother, as this nest of warmth and comfort and nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way she responds to these boys is amazing. Because I love the scenes where, when Ralphie gets in the fight,
Mm-hmm.
and she's in the kitchen, and she pulls the thing back under the sink, and Randy's sitting there crying. And she says, "What's the matter?"
Daddy's gonna kill Ralphie.
And she gives him, what is it? Is it cookies or something like that?
Milk.
Or
A glass of milk.
milk. It's like, "You want a glass of milk?" And she just lets him be under there.
Yeah.
Can you think of a mother letting her kid be under the kitchen sink? You know what I mean? And then, there are these moments like when the father comes home after the fight and Ralphie thinks he's dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the mother diffuses by saying, "Oh, they just had a fight," and then she points out something in the newspaper and just completely changes the subject.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. I love Melinda Dillon in this. Her best scene is when Ralphie says the cuss word.
With the soap.
And she sticks the life buoy in his mouth. And she sends him to bed. And there's a moment.
She tries it. She's like,
She
oh.
tries it.
Like, this can't be that bad. And she's like thinking, maybe I should try it. I don't want to try it.
What am I putting my kids through? But I gotta ask you one question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Ralphie fantasy?
Oh. My favorite Ralphie fantasy is the Black Bart gang.
Oh, I love the Black Bart. I love the cartoon sound effects.
Yeah.
The little crosses over their eyes.
Yeah. And how he's spitting. And
In the chaw.
Yeah. I love that one. That one's
My favorite is Soap Poisoning.
Oh, that one is. I mean, they're all phenomenal, but yeah,
I
the
just
soap
love
poisoning.
He comes home and there's the music, the sad music, and just
I told you not to use Life Boy.
What's brought you to this lowly stage was soap poisoning.
like they haven't seen him in 20 years, but he's still 8 years old.
Still a kid. That's my favorite. I love it. There's like 10 of those.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of them. The theme, how she's grading the themes, and you call this a paragraph? Margins, F. Look at this, A plus. And
They're carrying him out.
he's just standing there in the middle of the room, and she's like, "You can sit down now."
You can take your seat now. Yeah, God, there's so much to talk about in this movie. It's just wonderful. But the whole conceit, the whole glue of this is him trying desperately to figure out how to get around the objection to getting a BB gun.
You'll shoot
This
your eye
red
out,
light-
kid.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. This whole thing about trying to get around that, which, by the way, there is no documented case that I could ever find of a kid having his eye shot out by a BB gun.
The only time it probably ever came close to happening is in this movie when it ricochets off of the metal thing back into his glasses.
Yeah. And I just it's one of those. It keeps coming up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the through line, but it keeps coming up. He keeps coming back to it.
That's the only
And-
objection.
Yeah, and that's the only objection. And what's great is the father knows the whole time, and he never
Yeah.
tells the father.
No,
Yeah.
he only asks. He asks Santa. He asks his mother, and he writes the theme. So he's basically kind of pleading with his teacher, so that if he gets a good grade on it, he can give it to his parents and say, "Look at this,
Yeah.
Mom," and putting the Red Ryder thing in her copy of Look magazine, and all of that. But yeah, the father's the only one that he doesn't say anything about it to.
And the father just gets it. And that scene at the end,
Oh,
that is beautiful. When they're sitting there and they've opened the presents, and they're sitting there and he's looking at his knees, and his father says, "Did you get everything you wanted?" And he says, "Eh." And he
almost.
sort of, this is what my dad would do. He leans forward and he says, "What's that behind the desk? Why don't you go check it out?" And that beautiful music, and he pulls that present out, and it's just a great moment.
And then even the mom was like, "Where did that come from?" Hey, I don't. Must have been Santa.
Santa Claus brought it.
Yeah.
And then he kind of says, "You know what? I had one when I was 8 years old."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean I think the really great thing about this is how it's narrated. I usually don't
Gene Shepard is such a great part of it.
I don't usually like narration because I don't know unless it's explained who the character is talking to.
Mhm.
Like if they're just randomly talking to us, I'm like, well, do they know that they're in a movie? Is this happening concurrently? Are they narrating their story? This is flashback. Why are we being told this? Who are they talking to? Unless it's like a noir where one person's telling another person a story and it flashes back, or something like that.
I always get confused in the Shawshank Redemption because when exactly is Morgan Freeman telling the story, and who exactly is he telling the story to?
I see. That's one of my large problems with that movie, but we'll get to that some other time. So like, but here, it's just he's just recounting these stories. It's like you're reading the book, or you're reading the stories, and
This is based on a book.
it's based on multiple stories. Like I think 10 or 12 different short stories. Some of the stuff was actually based on stuff that Shepard did during college tours. He never actually published some of these stories.
Uh-huh.
And and his voice is just
Oh, his voice
perfect.
is so warm.
Yeah. It's a great, just very, very great raconteurish voice that just
And his use of words, only one thing could pull me away from the soft glow of electric sex in the window. It's just great. And the leg lamp. We got to talk about the leg lamp.
The leg lamp.
Everybody remembers the leg lamp. It's so great because it's like, I can't imagine, because it does not look like anything anybody would purchase. It has to be amazing.
No, yeah.
But he's so excited about it.
Well, because
He's
it's a major
dancing around
award.
It's a major award, and he's dancing around when he gets the telegram, and they open it, and
Look,
it's
look,
a
look.
point of history. This is before.
Fragile. This must be Italian.
This is before, styrofoam peanuts and all of that stuff. And it's packed in hay.
Yeah.
And he pulls the thing out, and I just love the look of that lamp because it's like, I don't know if you ever noticed, it has a butt cheek.
It does.
I love that touch. And I love Ralphie feeling the leg. It's like, yeah.
And the mom just like slapping his hand away.
Yeah. Right? In the middle of our front window.
Oh, you ought to see it from out here, honey.
And she turns it off.
Turned on the whole neighborhood. Yeah, don't want to waste electricity.
Yeah, and I gotta ask you though, was it an accident, or did she do it on purpose?
She did it on purpose.
I think it was accidentally on purpose.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
one of those she didn't like it, but she wouldn't knowingly, it was subconsciously on purpose. She wouldn't knowingly harm something that her husband loved so much, but at the same time she wanted that out of the house so bad.
His reaction to her when that lamp gets broken is great because he is on the edge of losing it. It's just the idea is you used all the glue on purpose.
And he gets it together, he puts the shade on it, and it just falls apart, and he's cradling it. He's cradling it like it's a dead loved one. And
Shepard's response.
he buried it out in the backyard that night.
Next to the garage.
Next to the
Played
garage.
taps.
I could swear that I heard the soft sound of taps playing.
It wouldn't be anything without Shepard. He's like mustering all of his dignity. He picked up the shattered remains of his major award. Later that night, he buried it next to the garage.
Yeah, and Peter Billingsley really doesn't have many lines. He reacts a lot to the stuff that's going on in his head, which is Shepard's voice, and but it's really kind of it's an impressive performance from Billingsley, but without Shepard's narration, if they had decided to do more show not tell, it wouldn't have worked as well.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have been as funny if you were actually burying it.
Right.
The idea in your mind is funnier than
because this is more like listening. This is more like listening to an audiobook than it is, but that doesn't take away from its cinematic quality. It's actually very cinematic and very literary. It's one of the rare ones that crosses over and could be considered kind of both.
I don't know. You mentioned Peter Billingsley. I don't know if this performance can be seen as sort of pantomime, but a lot of it is almost all reaction.
Yeah, and crying.
The look on his face. Now, Peter Billingsley, if you don't know at the time, was already known to us because he had been in a series of Nestle Quick commercials as Bessie Marvin, and so he never said a word in those commercials, but he was always reacting. So he does the same thing here. And but what's interesting is he's reacting to Shepard's words.
Right.
And I love that about it. And I love when he stows away in the bathroom to find out what the message is from the Lord and Annie. It's just the pressure of that scene builds and builds and builds as you see him writing furiously and that tongue is hanging out. And he's just like...
And the pounding on the door is like, Randy needs to use the bathroom. Come on, Ralphie.
Got to go. And he's like, and it's like it just.
I'll be
He
out
sits
in a
back and
minute.
reads it.
Jeez.
He sits back and he
The
reads
secrets of the universe. It was a
Yeah, the secrets of the
commercial.
universe.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. It was just a lousy commercial. Son of a bitch. He gets up, he opens the door, and poor little Randy just rushes in.
It's so much of this movie is the shattering of that
Childhood illusion.
shattering of that childhood illusion that they're going to send him a Dakota ring and all they're going to give him is a freaking commercial.
Yeah.
Ovaltine, and you notice how quickly he abandons that Dakota ring. I love that.
It's like he waited for like 8 weeks, for like two months and or longer. It's like it's finally here. Like every day checking the mail.
Yeah.
And in one fell swoop, it was just forget this crap.
You know what? Done. He just leaves it in the bathroom.
In today's parlance, it's canceled. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing also is there are 2 parts to his world. There's one in the home and then there's one outside the home. There's this running gag where they are terrorized by these bullies.
Scott Farkas incident.
Scott Farkas. Grover Dill, is that his name? Little Cody. And there's this scene where, right in the middle of the movie, and it's already been established that they're being terrorized, where they're running past on their way to school. And it's in fast motion. There's like, you see the kids run by, you see the kids, and then the bullies, and then Randy.
Yeah.
Still with his arms out. I love that stuff, because what's funny is, I love it when the kids run away, and this bully just starts beating up his own Tony.
Yeah.
And probably the most satisfying for a put-upon kid is the scene where Ralphie finally on school, and he's just, it is Anakin falling to the dark side. When he murders all the Tusken Raiders, it's the same thing. Because you can see his little brain just twisting. And he finally unloads.
The torrent of obscenities flowing from my mouth still hangs over Cleveland
And
Street.
the Tony's trying to get him up, and he pushes him away. And the Tony's like, I'm going to tell my dad.
He's like, hey. And then everybody's like, yeah. And then an adult shows up. It's his mom. And it's like, uh-oh.
Oh, let me tell you something. The last time I watched this movie, I was surprised how early in this movie the tongue sticking to the pole happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's right away.
It's right away. I was surprised. I thought it was like way later in the movie.
Because of the episodic nature of it, it could have been anywhere.
It could have been anywhere.
And that's the thing about this, that that's what kind of makes this perfect for if you do end up watching it in the 24-hour TBS. You can pick it up at any different point, and it still all makes sense.
But it's that thing that you do when you're a kid, testing urban legends.
Yeah.
Because I think Mythbusters actually went after this and found out that it's not really, well, it is possible, but probably not this way. What I don't understand is, why do they call the fire department? Why did they call the fire department over this?
And not like a paramedic or just a doctor or the school nurse to come out.
How about some warm water?
Yeah. because it's more dramatic, and they called the fire department for everything back then. cats
Well,
in the trees and
even more than that, why the bandage?
on the tongue. That was
He comes in with his mouth full of bandages. I've got to talk to you about this. I wanted to know. This movie takes place. There's been some controversy over exactly when this movie takes place. I believe it's around 1942.
Bob Clark in the commentary said that he kind of kept it amorphous on purpose, but he always kind of felt like it was about 1940,
Okay.
pre World War II.
I always, for some reason, zeroed in on 42.
It's pre World War II, so it's about 1940.
Yeah, and by the way, the larger world in this movie does not exist.
Does not.
It's a kid's idea.
Yeah.
But I was wondering because, and I know a lot about 20th century American history, but one thing I noticed, there's a black girl in his class. Now, this is Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I always bring this up whenever we watch the film. Now, I know there were segregated schools in the South, but I'm not sure there was that way in the North. Because you see
it depended on where you were.
Depending on where you were, I noticed that, and I've always been curious about that. Just I know it doesn't matter, but it was just interesting.
I mean around 1940 there was kind of official and unofficial.
This was a decade and a half before Brown versus Board of Education. And I just always wondered about that. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But it was just a curious thing.
Yeah, I hadn't ever really thought about it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. Just those little details.
Yeah.
Think of. When you see a movie this many times, and I've seen the movie about 100 times, you just pick up little things. And I was always curious about that. Maybe somebody listening could give a logical answer. I don't know. But I've lived in the South almost my whole life. That's curious. Anyway, but to the larger story is really interesting because when he tries to get this BB gun, and the classic BB gun block, the heartbreak when he gets that. He gets this essay back. And he's waiting and waiting.
Like, what do you want for Christmas? And he writes this page-long theme about the Red Ryder BB gun, and most of it's just a commercial for right out of the magazines for the gun.
Well, he writes
with the compass in the stock, which didn't exist apparently.
What I found curious is what she wrote on his paper.
P.S. You'll shoot your eye out.
Yeah. In big letters. That's horrible. It's like, that is horrible. And he's just heartbroken.
Yeah,
He looks up.
but when you really think about it, the adults in this movie, with the exception of his parents, and not even all the time, are really not supportive of the children that they're supposed to be in charge of. The teacher is really just kind of cold, and every adult, Santa, the elves, the parents that is Gene Shepard, is like, no, the line starts back there.
You know what I got from this teacher? And the movie tells you almost nothing about Miss Shields, but the one thing I got from this teacher is something that I noticed when I was in elementary school. These middle-aged people who thought that their teaching career was going to lead to being a professor at a college.
Right.
And they ended up at this dumpy little school teaching these snot-nosed little brats. But they're still trying to hold on to a little bit of the professionalism that they hoped they would have in their career. Because she's standing up there and she's like, we're going to write a theme.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you sense just little bits of it that she never reached the career heights that she wanted to.
Right, and this is probably just barely outside of one-room schoolhouses too. This,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. And we were talking, when I was talking about the larger world, you just made me think of it. One of the things I love is the fact that you are so afraid when you're a kid to step outside the rules.
mm-hmm.
When Flick gets his tongue stuck
The
to
bell
the floor,
rang.
the bell rang. I know you got
Ralphie,
your tongue
help
stuck to a
me!
pole, but
The bell rang.
the bell rang.
What are you gonna do?
So what could you do?
What can you do? You got to go in. The bell rang.
And the worst thing, the add-on to that is the fact that they don't tell anybody.
He's still stuck out there.
They just go into class and sit down. They don't tell anybody.
Where's
They
Flick?
don't make a mention of it. They let the teacher just figure it out.
Because they assume that whoever tells her is going to get in trouble for having something to do with it. So they don't say anything. But everybody was gathered around the flagpole to watch this happen.
And when the girl points it out, everybody gets up and runs to the window except Ralphie and Shorts.
And they both have this doomed look on their faces.
And she tries to shame them.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, it just doesn't work, She tries to shame them. Let's talk for a second about the curse word, too. I don't know if kids are like this today because everything is in front of them. But that word was a horror to us as children. That word, when he's changing, he goes out and he's changing the tire. And, what was it?
It wasn't so much a horror. It was the nightmare scenario of saying it, slipping and saying it in front of your parents.
Right.
I mean, it's the elementary school version of getting caught jerking off. Like,
yeah. Probably the dirty magazine.
Yeah.
What did you say? That's what I thought you said. And I love how he tells the mother.
Yeah.
Randy, and then, it's like whispering in her ear.
Because Randy's like leaning in.
Yeah.
And Ralphie's just sitting in the back seat with a stunned look on his face like, how did I let myself screw up like this?
Because this is the worst thing that could happen to you. This thing. At this age, is splitting. That's the queen mother of dirty words.
Mm-hmm.
The F dash dash dash. And it's so great, and I love it. Despite the fact that the kids have actually been cursing for.
Mm-hmm.
The kids have been cursing all along. What I love, the addendum to that, is when he rats on Schwartz.
Where did you hear it? Now, I've heard this word come out of my old man's mouth hundreds of times, but for some reason, Schwartz.
The whole reason I even brought up the F-word thing was because I wanted to talk about this scene. The mother goes
when
to the
she
phone.
calls, and you can hear it on the other. It's like down the street, Schwartz was getting his, and I.
Because the mother is like a garble. She's like, "Do you know where my son heard that word?" And she's like, "Not from his father."
Yeah.
Because he did.
Yeah. No, you said he heard it from Schwartz. What?
And you just hear him getting worn out. He doesn't even know what he did.
Yeah, because you can hear him. What did I do? What did I do? What did I
just
do?
love it. And you don't see anything except Belinda Dillon on the phone.
Mm-hmm. And when they go back to school, Schwartz says nothing about it.
Yeah. He doesn't
Neither one
know.
of them talk about it.
Because Schwartz doesn't know he said the word.
Yeah.
Schwartz doesn't know anything. He's got whale up.
And they're probably not going to tell him, you know what you did.
Why did you do that? How could I tell you what I did when I
Why
don't
did you
know
say
what
that?
did?
Why did you say that? Say what? You know what you said. No, I know.
I just love that scene. I know we're just repeating scenes, but this movie is just worth all that.
I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely hilarious, and it strings together. It's like I said, it's probably one of the best sketch movies. This, MASH, and it's hard to do a sketch movie.
Yeah.
And make it coherent. Even Monty Python had trouble with it. With Meaning of Life. Not so much with.
They did better with their.
Yeah. Because the Holy Grail was basically a sketch movie too. So it's hard to do, and when you're watching a movie that's episodic, you start to feel worn out after a certain point, usually, unless it's done really, really well, like this or MASH or Holy Grail.
The brilliance of this is that now we're recording this, by the way, on the 20th anniversary of TBS doing their marathon.
Yes.
That starts today.
Yes.
If you're listening to this on the day we post it. This is December 24th.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1997, they started doing 24 Hours of a Christmas Story. Which is interesting because this is the perfect movie to do it with.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can pick this movie up at any moment.
Right, and it's right where you already know where you are, and then if you stick with it to the end, you're like, oh, I missed one of my favorite parts from the beginning, and then you just watch it again, or you
watch it again.
You catch it intermittently throughout those 24 hours, and you'll basically end up seeing the whole thing. Now, I personally don't like watching movies piecemeal like that, but this is perfect for that. This is
perfect for that. Because nowadays, they marathon everything.
Right.
You know, there's All Day Rocky. There's All Day Die Hard. If you own a basic cable package,
All Day Godfathers, there's,
Yeah, All Day, All Day Harry Potter.
Wow.
You know, yeah. But this is one of the only movies you can actually watch and just pick up in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably, the one scene that I will always pick up, just if I happen to walk by it, is the scene with Santa Claus. This may be my favorite scene in the movie, when they go to Higby's apartment.
So terrifying.
Because he's got this idea that since he's getting nowhere with the teacher and with his mother, he's going to tell Santa Claus. Santa Claus in this movie is great.
It's great, but even before that, the kid with the aviator goggles.
I was going to mention that. I like the Wizard of Oz.
And apparently, he was just an extra that was weirding out Peter Billingsley, so they had him do more of that, and they got it on camera. And I like the Wizard of Oz. I like Santa Claus.
Kind of a Ralph Wiggum type. It's kind of a non-sequitur.
But you can
and
see...
I think everybody...
You can see the old man come out in Ralphie.
Yeah.
At that point where he's like, yeah, I like Santa. He goes, okay. And he just kind of turns away.
That's the one where he's talking about... No, it's the witch when she comes up. He's like, I'm busy. You know.
Yeah.
But the kid that comes up and he says, I like the Wizard of Oz. We all knew a kid like that.
Yeah. Yes.
I went to school with a kid. I can't even remember his name, but it was just random stuff. I like pudding. I was like, what? It was just random stuff. And it was just the Ralph Wiggum thing, you know.
Uh-huh.
You know, My cat's breath smells like cat poop. You know, that's what this kid is. I like the Wizard of Oz. But what's funny though is they get that kid up on Santa's lap, and the first thing he does is start screaming.
Yeah.
They take these kids and throw them down the slide. There's so many lawsuits today. I mean,
and kicking him in the face. Kicking him down after he stops it.
can we talk about this Santa Claus? You know, when you introduced me at the top of this episode, that is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie because he makes these little asides.
Mm-hmm.
He makes these little asides in the middle of this fake, cynical howl, howl, howl. And he turns to the elf and makes me think I'm working past 9 o'clock. He can kiss my foot. Howl, howl, howl. I love this Santa Claus because he's like just this guy who's doing this crummy job. And it's like, you get up there and, you know, you see Ralphie's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's swinging around. Oh, and the elves. The elves are these mean-spirited, awful people in these
Come
terrifying...
on, kid.
The store is closing. Wearing the same outfit that his mother was wearing in the fantasy at school. And, you know...
You'll shoot your eye out. And I love the fisheye lensing.
Yeah.
And, like, distorting everything out just to, like, make everything spookier and creepier and more horrid.
When you're a small child, Santa Claus can be terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
He's loud, he's big, he's wearing this big, giant costume, and he's just... You know, sometimes he can be terrifying.
He's known for perpetrating home invasions.
Right, right. And he drops anonymous packages in your house.
Right.
I mean, leaving unattended baggage in your house. You know, but he comes
And not
up
only
there,
that, but he's trying to lure kids' love with toys. I mean,
yeah.
If that doesn't scream
But
child molester, I don't know what does.
Well, when Ralphie goes up there, I love the elves because they're like pulling these kids. They're like not by the hand. They are jerking these kids.
Yanking them up. One of them pees on Santa.
Oh,
It's like my lap is wet.
I know we're just reiterating the scene, but it's so great. But Santa Claus is so cynical.
It's really that's part of the heart of this movie. Is like it shows you the reality, the real side of a lot of the stuff that goes on at Christmas, and you know it's not an idealized kind of a thing. It's a real thing, and that's why it resonates so much. Is because it shows the reality of the entire season. The kid just desperately wanting this one thing, and you know the having to still go to school while this is all about to be happening.
And also shattering the illusion again with the decoder ring, shattering the illusion of Santa Claus. Because Santa Claus finally tells him what he wants. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Yeah.
And just foot, and he just.
I mean. And I think that's why, you know, the people who think that it is the cynical kind of thing, it's like they're not used to this level of truth in a Christmas movie.
Yeah, that critic that I talked about at the top of this show. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, the Miracle on 34th Street, It's a Wonderful Life, and White Christmas, and Holiday Inn, and...
oh, my God. Miracle on 34th Street, let me tell you, it's a wonderful, beautiful movie, but it's also about Santa Claus being thrown in an insane asylum for saying he's...
I know! I love that movie. And that was cynical for, what, 43?
Yeah. But it's just great. It's like, you know, Ralphie's growing up, and he's, what, 10, maybe 11 years old?
It's like 8 or 10.
Yeah, well, he's almost to the point of starting to edge against preteen, shattering the notions of childhood. He's not a toddler anymore. He's starting to get to that age.
Right.
And he's starting to shatter the idea. I have a feeling that of course we know that this BB gun will mean something to him for the rest of his life. I have a feeling he ended up probably using it maybe for the next year.
Yeah.
And then the next year he probably just forgot about it. Because that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes. I don't recall. I wanted to ask you this. Did you ever have a BB gun
No.
obsession? Did you ever have a BB gun style obsession, a present that you really, really honestly wanted?
Well, I do know that the year this movie came out was also the year that Return of the Jedi came out.
Absolutely.
And that was the first movie I ever saw in the theater, and come Christmas, I went through every package that I was given, 2 years old, and I literally, as I was ripping the paper, I was going, Jabba, 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 Jabba? Not Jabba. And throwing it. They were going to save it till last, but they had to give it to me if they wanted me to pay attention to anything else they got me.
Yeah.
And I got it. I slept with that little slug for years. And I still have it up in my office. If you can see it behind me, Jerry, we're doing this on Skype.
Right there on the shelf.
With Salacious Crumb and Bib Fortuna, his major domo. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably one of the and a guitar. I did Christmas Story type hinting with when I wanted my guitar, which is that one right there. I would like play a lot of like early Bob Dylan when he was solo acoustic, like really loud, and like and then my grandparents ended up getting it for me, and now I have like 4, so I did actually follow through with that one too. What about you? Did you have anything that you?
I was an early adopter, although I did not know it. An early adopter of breaking gender stereotypes, because I was always more interested in the toys that the girl next door had than probably my own. She had Barbie dolls, she had strawberry shortcake, she had all, and couldn't care less.
My Little Pony, and
I wanted a strawberry shortcake doll, but never got it.
Oh no!
Because I didn't ask for it.
Oh.
And I never thought about it. I thought they were kind of cool. I thought, well, you get these little dolls and they smell like...
Yeah, my sister had one. You push the belly and it smells like rotten strawberries. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got a little whiff of nostalgia literally a whiff of nostalgia, because pop vinyl figures for these actually smell like what they're supposed to smell like.
Well, I remember even well over 10 years after my sister getting one, it still like you still push the belly and it still smelled like rotten artificial strawberries. It was really impressive.
Yeah. It still smells like that. I don't know.
I don't know what was in there.
I wanted one, never got it.
Well, so you didn't ask. You didn't ask. Maybe you would have gotten one. Oh,
but
the 70s.
I didn't care about. I was not into sports at all. I didn't care about quote unquote boys' toys and all that. And that was just me. And I was not Ralphie. I was Randy. Okay, I was the typical little brother. All the things that Randy does, except maybe the little piggy thing. All the things that Randy does, I think I did, because I had an older brother.
I have an older sister, so I mean I'm a little brother too, and I remember not wanting to eat and stuff like that, but for the most part, she was 3 years old. She's 3 years older than me, so we just kind of existed separately, except on Sundays we would play together, like My Little Pony or something. We would actually, I would usually play with her and her toys down in the basement. And when my mother worked, she was a med tech. My father would be upstairs falling asleep to golf or something, and
Yeah.
my mother would come home and she's like, "Where are the kids?" And he goes, "I don't know. I haven't heard from them all day." And it's like, that's what their danger is.
Well, to put a final thing on this, I can't watch this outside of the marathon for some reason.
It's
Because it reminds me, because when I see the movie on TBS, I know
It's Christmas.
in my brain, Christmas is here.
Yeah, like I got around that for this by watching it only with the commentary. I didn't watch the movie without the commentary, so that it's kind of like I'm watching it, but I'm not watching it, so I can be refreshed on some of the stuff that might not jump into my head, but at the same time, I'm getting information about it, and I'm not really watching the movie.
I defended that marathon, by the way, by telling somebody this. Somebody said, "What? Well, it's stupid. Why would you put something on 24 hours back to back?" My response is this: it's visual music.
Yeah, at this
I
point.
credit this to my friend Marie. She came up with this. She said, it's visual music. You go to a party, and there are people milling around, doing whatever. This is on in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So it's visual music. You don't have to get up and change the movie, change the channel, whatever. It's always on.
Right.
And if somebody wants to sit down and watch part of it, they can sit down and watch part of it because it's episodic, and you can just pick up certain scenes.
Right. And
It's
perfect. It is a perfect movie. And going off of that, Jerry, what are your recommendations for?
I had to work on this a little bit. I just remembered this last night. If you're a horror fan, and I know this is weird to say, Chris, if you're a horror fan, there is a really bizarre film from 1972 that you should check out, which has got a great title. It's called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. It was the second or third film ever directed by Bob Clark. And it's bizarre. It's one of those early 70s kind of cultish horror films. It's kind of great because Bob Clark generally didn't make great movies, but
No.
he made this one. It's kind of funny. It's like an acting troupe that's on an island, unearths a corpse, and to use it in a satanic ritual, and it doesn't go well. It's kind of got an Evil Dead vibe to it. It's actually kind of funny. I know it sounds weird to recommend this off the Christmas movie.
Well, it's
If you
themed
want
by
a
the
Bob Clark
director.
movie that you probably haven't heard of, that may be it.
Well, let's see. How do we follow that one?
Some actually just can't follow it.
Because I don't remember what I recommended last week. So, I'll say this being the perfect Christmas movie. This and It's a Wonderful Life, like from last week. What I would recommend is maybe some atypical Christmas movies. Die Hard.
Yeah.
And I think I brought that up last week.
That's become a tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to work that into my yearly rotation, and if you want to sit through it, Batman Returns.
Ooh,
It's
an ugly little movie.
I mean, if you want to, it's set at Christmas, so.
I don't know. Watch Carol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do
Carol.
Carol too. That's a great movie, though.
The lesbian Christmas movie, you know?
Yeah. Hey, it was a great movie.
It's a great movie.
But yeah, a non kind of Christmas movie. Didn't at some point Todd Haynes' other great one,
Todd.
Far From Heaven, was set around Christmas or part of it
Late.
happens at Christmas. Yeah, because I think it's at the office Christmas party that her husband is found making out with a with a guy.
I wrote extensively about that at Armchair Oscars. You can find it there. I think that was, what, 2002?
Yeah.
2002?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find my essay about that on Armchair.
But yeah, I mean the other thing that you could think about now. I haven't seen this movie, so this maybe isn't a recommendation, but it's a curio. There is a sequel to this movie.
Oh, there are two sequels to this movie.
Well, the one that Bob Clark did was called A Summer Story, and it was
It's
done
not
about
very good.
10 years later with a
Yeah.
different cast, but Gene Shepard also helped work on it.
He's fine, but the movie it doesn't work.
Well, because it's recast, and you don't really
This
want.
is lightning. Christmas Story is lightning in a bottle. This
Yeah.
is not.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And in Christmas Story 2, stay as far away from that movie as you possibly can.
Yeah, I've never seen
terrible.
that one either.
Oh. Anyway.
But anyway, so Jerry, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week, the
Happy
next
New
time
Year.
you hear from us, it will be the year of our Lord, 2018. And to welcome in the new year, we are talking about the 200th anniversary of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We're going to be talking about the 1931 Boris Karloff classic, its follow-up, which is arguably even better, The Bride of Frankenstein, and the third and last film that Karloff made as the monster, The Son of Frankenstein. And, as a bonus, Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein. Yes.
Young
yes,
Frankenstein. Damn your eyes.
yes. Too late.
Too late. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. So
Yes.
you're getting a 4-pack next time. So that's going to ring in the new year. So join us for that.
Yes. I'm very much looking forward to revisiting, especially Bride of Frankenstein, it's been a couple of years since I've seen that. My son and I watch Frankenstein all the time, but Bride of
I
Frankenstein.
just saw Frankenstein here at Halloween. It's creaky. It's very creaky, but it's great.
It is. And Son of Frankenstein is a lot better than you might think it is, too. So that's coming up next week. The week after, the New Year's episode, we are doing my pick, which is Tristram Shandy, A Cock and Bull Story.
Which I've never seen.
I keep doing this to you. I keep bringing
Keeps me
stuff
on my
into your
toes.
fold.
Gets me
here.
introduced to films that I've never heard of. The movie we're going to follow that up with, not going to go too far into scheduling, but the movie after that is one of my favorite movies, the very troubling The King of Comedy.
I love that.
I do too, but it's creepy.
I think it's funny that we're circumventing expectations by the first Kubrick movie that we do on the Pod Bay Doors was The Shining, and the first Scorsese movie we're doing is virtually unknown, and it's The King of Comedy.
Yeah.
It's not Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull,
Or Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, none of that. No, King of Comedy.
Because I just have so much to say about it.
Me too. And it will be our tribute to the slightly recently departed Jerry Lewis. And so that's about what we have today. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You can find me. I'm Doug Heller. You can find me at talkmovietome.com, as well as on Twitter at talkmovietome1. You can find Jerry at armchaircinema.com, armchairoscars.com, and overthinkingoscars.com, and at armchaircma on Twitter. You can find all of our past episodes at www.thepodbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. Thank you very much for listening. Happy Christmas, and the Pod Bay doors are now closed.
The mission had been completed.